Our other guest speaker, who's supposed to be number 2nd, is supposed to talk on behalf of Aboriginal people in Alberta, but he kind of like having a little bit tough time today, so he didn't come. Hopefully next time he will join us. I think I've alerted you based on what I pick up from the guest speakers, and including myself that you just came and heard too. You are most welcome. If you guys want to share talking together, that's fine with us. You can come and share. Okay, sure. We have candidate Brooks, who is going to come and present to us the NDP.
Nasuhan nito tema, tanse insigasyon sipsiski po taga Oceania, kamasar technical classic. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here in my language. I just said hello and thank you so much for the invitation. So I am Cree. As you all know, I can speak a little bit about the Aboriginal perspective as well. So I'm glad that I'm here today because it's so wonderful to be able to talk to our folks all across Alberta. We all know what the theme of this conference is today, the dealing with anti-racism, and then working on an Alberta that is racism-free. As an Indigenous person, as a Cree man who has grown up in rural Alberta, I can tell you that it has not been easy. And I know our communities have so many parallels. We face the hate on the streets, we face it in shops, we face it by our doctors. And that, in my view, is unacceptable. Our people are very strong and proud people, and we have fought and overcome so many things. I've talked to people on the doors day in, day out, and I'm sorry I'm actually not wearing dress shoes because I'm wearing my door knocking shoes, because that's where we just came from today. Because we've talked to our neighbors. We have spoken about every single thing that you can imagine, from being able to afford life, from also being able to ensure our kiddos have good schools and a curriculum that reflects them. We need to make sure that the diversity of Alberta, that we all know and love and came here for and live here and remain here, will continue for the next 7 generations. We have a responsibility to ensure every single one of our kids, our grandkids, their grandkids, can live in an Alberta that is free from racism and hatred. And we are seeing it on the doors. We are hearing, folks, that intolerance is on the rise, that hatred is being spouted by far-right people that carry really dangerous ideology. And for us, we want to make sure that our kids are safe and protected. So our number one guarantee to you is to ensure that we have an Alberta that is free from hate. Let me tell you a little bit about where I come from. So I grew up on my First Nation. I grew up on Reserve. I know firsthand what it's like to live in full poverty. I know what it's like to have water that you can't drink from the taps. I know what it's like to experience hatred based on my residence and where I come from. And I don't think that that is the Alberta that I want from my nieces and my nephews. I certainly don't want that for any of our kids. We want to make sure that every single Albertan in this province is supported. And how we do that is by making sure that we pass an anti-racism act. We are going to make sure that that legislation is one of the first things that we pass to deal with race-based hate, but also to collect data, yes. Because we need to know what that hatred is. We need to root it out. We need to pick it out and find out what it is exactly. Because if we don't have the data behind us, we're not able to act on it. Those incidents that you're having with your doctors or with nurses or on the street with police or with our neighbors, we need to make sure we collect that information. We need to know that that is happening on our streets or within our institutions. Because we know it's there. We know, we experience it. My people, I face it when I go into stores. I walk around like this. I'm not going to joke, I walk around like this with my hands out because they will always accuse us of stealing. Always. And I'm hyper vigilant of that. And even if they don't do it, it's still that nagging feeling on the inside that they're watching us. And that is not a comfortable feeling. We should be able to walk into stores without a concern that we are going to be reprimanded or somebody's going to look at us and say, hey, you look suspicious. Because that happens today in 2023. And it's going to continue happening unless we start addressing it. So that is our commitment to make sure that we are dealing with racism and having these discussions. Because without it, we will not be able to address it. We also want to make sure that Albertans are supported in all ways, in every single way that you possibly think of. Whether that's lower utility rates or insurance rates. I'm sure by now you're all hearing all of this spiel, so I'm not going to go into every bit of detail. But for the focus of this presentation, and as an Indigenous person, I want to tell you that my community stands with you. We are... And I'm very, very sorry that the representative that was supposed to speak here today on the Aboriginal perspective was not able to come, but you got second best. You got a candidate who's also Indigenous. When we're talking about how we better support our communities, it's by having conversations with folks. It's by coming to these events, by hearing what concerns you have. Because that is the Alberta that we will build together. It's not by bureaucrats or politicians spouting their ideas and leading with those ideas. It's by talking to every single Albertan. It's by hearing the incidents that happen. It's by weeding all of those things out because we're talking to our neighbors. We've been out talking to our neighbors since July. And just the other day, I talked to a recent refugee who came here, became a Canadian citizen, and is voting for me because of the hatred that they had at home. Their government was targeting their children, their boys, and were putting them, they actually, a couple of weeks ago, they had a moment where the government actually lined them in a row and it was a really, it was a very, very, very hard conversation, but they gunned them down because they were trying to flee into a refugee camp. And that happens today. And we are saying that as Alberta, a place that is safe and prosperous and that is supportive of every person and every walk of life, we are still experiencing that kind of hatred in other parts of the world today. And yet they come here and face hatred on the streets. We need to deal with that. We have a responsibility as your next government, as the government in waiting, the NDP will address this, and I can make that commitment as a Nakio Napio, as a person of many different communities that deserve respect and identification, and we will do that. We are going to do that by electing the first Somali MLA in this province. We're going to do that by electing the first Trinidadian woman of color from this province as the first MLA. And we're going to do that by ensuring that the first progressive Indigenous voice also gets in that legislature, but not by just me, by 5 other candidates, which is huge. We're going to make sure that your community is supported by having these conversations, but within our first 100 days, we are going to make sure that that curriculum is changed. So then that way it reflects our beautiful diversity. It reflects those beautiful kids in the back that are Albertans, that belong here, that are going to change this world. We're also going to make sure that you, as parents, have access to the kids' activity tax credit, which is $500 in your bank account, so your kiddos can go play soccer, can go play baseball, can do whatever their heart desires, so they can have a good life here in Alberta. We're also going to reverse big budget cuts that they made to cultural organizations while strengthening these initiatives through grant funding. So more things like these presentations can happen, so we can have these conversations, so we can build those bridges and break down those walls. We're also going to make sure that, we're going to schedule working with our public school board and our Catholic school board, by scheduling on cultural days, we're going to make sure that the student counting days don't happen and major tests can be rescheduled. So if your community has important days that are important, we will be able to reschedule them in the school so the kiddos don't miss school while also being able to attend their cultural days. And that's important for me because we have family that go to Sundance during the summer, and school ends not until the end of June, and that's when Sundance happens. So for us, when we need to go to ceremony, that makes sure that they're not being interfered with their studies, because we understand the importance of education, we understand the importance of hiring good teachers, because I don't know if you guys all know this, but the UCP, since they've been in their term, tens of thousands of students have entered into this school body, and 0 teachers have been hired to add on top of that. So your kids are in classrooms that are loaded with at least up to 40, maybe even more, in staff rooms, in gymnasiums, across the board, and no teachers have been hired to give them quality education. I hear of every day kids putting up their hands, not being able to have questions answered because their teacher is too busy working with other kids. Some kids with needs that surpass their peers, and they don't have educational assistants to also help them out. So we're really struggling. We're hearing on the doors that people are struggling right now in schools, in seniors complexes, and in your homes. Your bills are really high. We want to address that. Big corporations are getting handouts right now. $20 billion, in fact, to clean up oil wells, which they have a legal responsibility to clean up. And then $300 million to a downtown arena in Calgary, when Edmonton got nothing for an arena. And why are we saying this? Because the UCP are standing up for corporations and not everyday Albertans. And that is our commitment to you. We will make sure your community is counted, included, and always consulted. Because I know the importance of consultation, I work in it, I breathe in it, and I have lived every single day speaking with and for my community. I'm in-house legal counsel right now, so I have a really strong connection to consultation. I know the importance of it, and I want to make sure that your community is included. So, hi, Nanas for having me today. Albert and Edmonton will continue standing up for you.